oh no, this looks like Scala. So, because they basically got inspired by the best. And they basically put together everything that happened in the last years into language. So quick look, what is Kotlin? Because some people didn't know. It's a JVM-based language. So I mean, you can totally mix it with Java. So especially in Android. Call Java from Kotlin, call Kotlin from Java, there's like no problem here. It is an object-oriented language, but there's a lot of functional aspects that they took into the language. I mean, in the last years, functional with like reactive became really, let's say, hip. So having functional aspects like lambdas, like function references, using them on Android or Java is like a nice thing. And you don't have to wait for Java 8. It is a statically typed language. So that means still not like in Groovy, which is also a JVM language. It's like Java. Your types are set on compile time. But in Kotlin, you can write something like this. The variable number equals 5. You don't have to tell the compiler that this is integer. It's obvious. This is called type inference. And this is one of the reasons that make Kotlin, for me, so nice. There's a lot of things that you don't have to write anymore. All the things that we repeat and repeat all over again in Java. Important for us is this one, right? It was designed with Android in mind. So, as I mentioned, there was Scala a few years ago, but no one ever wrote, or few people wrote Android application. And Scala, it was possible, but then you had to ship basically 25 megabytes of Scala runtime. So, Kotlin is a really nice match to Android. And when you go to an Android meetup, at least in Germany, 80% of the people are, when you go to a Kotlin meetup, 80% of the people there are Android developers. The main feature for most people, Kotlin is null safe. So they say null pointer exception is like $1 billion mistake. In Kotlin, you have to declare that something is nullable. If you don't declare it, you cannot set null. The compiler will punch you in the face. But of course, null is possible, but you have to tell it. So in the end, it's all about reducing a lot of boilerplate. So when you ask Kotlin developers or people that use Kotlin, everyone that I talked to said, I write like 1/3 less code than I did before. And I think this is really awesome. And as I mentioned, no need for Java 8. So there has been a lot of languages all over the time, right? I mentioned like a lot of JVM languages like Ruby and Scala. And iOS, we had Swift. A lot of time there's a problem with those languages. And if you know Uncle Bob, Robert Martin, the author of Clean Code, he wrote about this a time ago. He called it a churn. Because he said, you know what happens is all of those languages, they bring us a lot of new features, but they also throw us back years behind because we miss all the toolings with those new languages. So we're kind of starting from scratch again. So something new, but also throwing you back. So we're doing circles. The good thing of Kotlin, this language is built by a tool manufacturer. It is by JetBrains. It's by the guys that wrote IntelliJ. This is the base for Android Studio. So the tooling support is already much better than, for example, Swift support for iOS developers. I'll give you one example. Try to copy Java code in a Kotlin file. IntelliJ will ask you, hey, this is Kotlin file, if you want to convert it. So the tooling support cannot be better when you think about like a new language. So now we are all super excited. And then you tell your boss, and it might be that he looks kind of like this. And I've seen this a lot. I've used Kotlin in production, but I also had a lot of people, and I know people, where the stakeholders said, no Kotlin in production. There are a lot of reasons. And actually just today I posted a blog about this, and 30 minutes later someone said, hey, thanks for sharing this, can I translate this to Chinese? So this is a global problem. So now we are all super sad, right? No Kotlin, we have to stick to Java for the next 20 years. But wait, maybe there is a backdoor. Because actually those stakeholders, they don't care about your tests, right? So I would actually see the other way around as a developer. I would go with Uncle Bob, who said, the test code is your most important code in your code base, not your production code. But your boss, your product manager, very often they don't care if you write even tests, right? It's the responsibility of us developers writing those. So tests became like a safe place for experiments. So try out new libraries with your tests. Why? Because tests are meant for immediate feedback, and you don't ship them, so they're all really safe. So let's try Kotlin and tests. And there are a lot of things in Kotlin that will make testing much more fun than it is with Java. And it doesn't matter if you're tracking what expressive or JUnit, but most of the things I will show you is about unit testing. But you can adapt them easily because in the end it's JUnit. So one of the things with Kotlin is that it's a very expressive language. It is very easy to read. So let's look at the test method, or we would write it in Java. Probably you've seen stuff like this: add test, test handles, no argument. Let's convert it to Kotlin. Still looks pretty much the same, right? Let's clean this up a bit. First, let's remove this test. Please don't write test because you have an annotation there. Looks better. Let's make it better. This still works also in Java, right? I think this reads better, handles non-arguments. Whenever I show this, people say, yeah, I don't like the underscores. So let's remove them. And this is now something that's not possible in Java. So you can build sentences as methods, basically. Maybe you wouldn't. This is, I think, one of the features that you don't want to have in your Android code, for example. And actually, Android link tells you, hey, don't use this. But this is perfect for tests, because tests method are the thing that you see in a test report. Those green and red bubbles, and all you have is a test name. So make them as expressive as possible. They shouldn't look like method calls. They should look something like this. This is why frameworks like Spock became like really famous, and a lot of people use them because the response tells you what's wrong, and you don't want to have it very technical. So it's about readability. And let's think about another example where readability is really important. Maybe you have some, I wouldn't call them unit tests, but it's kind of like a gray zone here. So tests where you pass some JSON and then build like a model out of this, for example. And you have a test to make sure that all this pre-processing is correct. Probably you try to put your JSON into a Java file that looks like this. You have all those backslashes, masking, escaping, all those apostrophes, maybe you have your pluses everywhere for like new lines. This is a mess, no one can read it. What happens? You will take that code and put it in a JSON file somewhere next to your test. And then you can't see them in your test anymore, and you don't really see what's this about. This is how you would write this in Kotlin. Add those 3 apostrophes, and then you can write unmasked text, basically, in your Kotlin file. And all of a sudden, your test can sit next to this, and you can, this JSON is about this, and this is what I want to test. Let's look at another test. The only way you could recognize that this is Kotlin is there's no semicolon. I forgot about that feature. But this could be Java or Kotlin. So let's assume we have a class and a test, and we call some update network status, and we give it like an Android network info object or something. And then afterwards, we want to make sure, okay, with this, maybe mock network info, I want to check. There's no cellular connection, there's no Wi-Fi connection, maybe no Bluetooth, whatever, right? So a lot of asserts, a lot of things cluttering up my test. Wouldn't it be nice to write it like this? It's not connected to any network. But then you realize, but I only need this method in the tests. I don't need it in production. So I don't want to have something in my production code that's only for test. Would be bad practice, right? Actually, in Kotlin, this is possible. It's called extension functions. What we will do is, let's assume this class was called connectivity receiver. We will add a method to that class, just on your test space. It sounds really scary, right? But it's something that other languages have too nowadays. And it's not really manipulating anything on that class. The class stays as it is. We basically just put something into this namespace. And then in this method, we can check all the tiny method we wanted to call. And then it looks much cleaner. And actually with this, we could even write it better. So first, let's make this, I showed you again. Make this a bit more Kotlin, because there's the Boolean type here. So let's remove that. Remove the brackets. This looks more like a Kotlin method. It's all about readability here. But we could write something like this. Actually, let that object itself assert that it's not on any network. So put everything into this object. And this is definitely something you don't want to do in production code, right? You don't want to put like assert on your production Android code. But just as an extension function. It's as easy as this. So here would be a method. We do all the asserts there. So in the end, it's about keeping it short. Again, readability is like the first thing for tests. And the second thing is readability. So let's look at something that we probably have in our test in Java. Something like this. Maybe you prepare like a test map. Let's stay with like this network class. Maybe put like the signal level for Edge and for Wi-Fi and put them all in a hash map. Let's write this in Kotlin. It's one line. Hash map off, and then you put always the key into value. And there's list of, and mutable list of, we need an array list, and all those nice helper methods. And in the end, we use all this boilerplate. Because ideally, your test should have like 3 lines. The arrange, the act, and the assert. Maximum 3 lines, right? It wasn't even possible with like 3 lines you need to just to set up a hash map. Let's make tests also consistent. There's one problem, maybe you never realized, but when you think about it, it's there in JUnit tests. Always the last line in the arrange, act, assert, or given when then, whatever your syntax is you like, is like a verify or an assert. It's the last thing on your test. Actually not, because sometimes you have an exception. And then you put add throws annotation to your test to tell the compiler, actually this one time, this will throw an exception. So it's always the last thing, unless an exception, and it's the first thing, even before the method. Doesn't make any sense. Kotlin brings you this. Assert fails with this exception, and then do the call. So all of a sudden, even if there's an exception, this assertion can be there. There's nothing you have to declare as an annotation. Keep everything in your test code. So this is all stuff that Kotlin brings you out of the box in the Kotlin test package. But we are not using JUnit out of the box, right? We're using a lot of frameworks with it. So what about mocks? Probably most of us use like Mockito or something similar. We're happy to hear there's a Kotlin Mockito. And you will be even happier to hear that this is not like a replacement of Mockito. It's just using, it's basically syntactical sugar on top of Mockito. It uses the original Mockito 2 as it is, and just add some sprinkles to make it nicer to use. And actually, if you try to use Mockito directly in Kotlin, it looks even uglier than in Java, because it's meant for Java. So let's look at how we mock something with Kotlin Mockito. We could write something like this. Looks very similar, but we can use the generic instead of the resource.class, how we would use Mockito for Java. We could also write it like this. You know, if the type is already known, this could be also earlier in the program, the compiler already knows what this is. Remember, like with the number type. So just say, okay, whatever this is, mock it. You can even make it. So, before I show you how you can make it nicer, let's look how we do the when then. Very similar as before. Just when is a protected keyword on Kotlin, so they had to do the whenever. If you want to use when, you have to use apostrophes. But looks the same as in Java, except the missing semicolon. But let's now combine those 2 statements. How about this? So we mock the resource, and by the way, on getString, return this. So you're not separating anymore the declaration, and then you have like a setup step. Put everything in one line. It's very easy to see what this mock will do. You don't have to look into that part of code, that part of the code. So you don't have to use it, but I think it's a really nice way. And this is very Kotlin. Let's look at another example of mock using mock. Remember when I told you about this type inference? Think about you have something like this. On a recycler view, you set the adapter, and this needs to be a recycler view adapter. Again, just use mock. The compiler already knows what this method needs. don't tell them that this is a recyclerview.adapter.class. This is just cluttering your test code. Your test code or your specification, keep them as simple as possible. But you can write this even nicer. Remember, the test shouldn't be really about methods calling. This is your production code. This is a specification. So how about writing it like this? So actually, I want to set that adapter on the recycler view to a mock. I know you might wonder, but wait, there is no field adapter, and if there would be, it would be private, right? This is the Kotlin way of doing the same thing as I showed you for set adapter or get adapter. You can directly use this property syntax. If you've done other languages, like I think C# has the same thing, but this is much nicer, and especially when it comes to verification. So you can do something like verify on this recycler view the adapter was set to anything, or whatever you want to check. So this reads nicer because it separates the both concerns here. Instead of verifying that set adapter was called with this argument, and then it's just about the way of reading it becomes nicer. Let's look at another example that becomes like, I don't know, I don't like the way it's written in Java. Let's assume we need to verify something like this, but in a specific order. Typical task in Mockito, you would write something like this. So let's assume we have a parcel Android class, and we want to verify that the parcel implementation is correctly, so we verify first the right string. So create an order verifier, and then on this verifier we call verify with the right byte. And by the way, I have to tell them that this is a byte. And then the right string was the second one. In Kotlin, this is also 3 lines, but I think it looks a bit better. You would write it like this. So I need an in order about parcel, and then I just want to verify that you first call right byte without anything here, because it's clear that this is a byte. And then the same with the right string. So we again use like this, the box syntax here. And give the whole thing a context, so I don't have to tell them this is the verifier.verify. And this, here the difference was not so much, but there's a very similar case in Mockito. The argument capturing. So let's look at this in Java. So we create an argument capture for adapter for a class adapter again, and then we verify that the set adapter is called, and then capture whatever this adapter was, and then in the assertion we get that value. And we call, for example, get item count must be 1. So the idea of this test is make sure that whatever you set up, afterwards the adapter has a size of 1. Let's write this in Kotlin. We again need an argument capture, and of course we have to tell them what the type is. And actually, sometimes Kotlin is more specific, because adapter need a type, which is a view holder. So Kotlin will force you to tell them exactly what type it is, and if this will be a wrong type, he will already complain here. But you still, again, use this dot apply. And then we just say, okay, verify, capture this adapter. So this might be looking weird, but think about what we showed earlier. So this is actually set adapter and capture that value in there. And you don't need capture or something. It's just capture because the context is clear. We are in Null play. And even better, it's when the second part was the get value. Get value, we can write as value. And even get item count, we can write item count. So things becomes much more readable. And let me just show you the other one again. When you look at this, it'll take like 10 seconds to understand what it is. It's much less here. And this is what tests should be about. As quick as possible, see what's going on. So, in JUnit, we use a lot of different assertion libraries. I'm not sure if you use hemquest or fast assertion, something like this. Because the JUnit assertions are a bit, let's say, minimalistic. When it comes to Kotlin, we have new possibilities. So people also thought, is there a way how we can make assertions in a nicer way using Kotlin features? So have a look at Clued. So Clued is a library that is totally focused on readability. And as I said, this is like the main, most important thing for your tests. So let's look at an assertion. And this is a semicolon, it's Java. Actually, it could also be Kotlin because it's just optional, the semicolon. So we assert that the string hello will be the same as this greeting string. Expected and actual. You always mix them up, right? One of the reasons why hamquest came up. Wouldn't it be nicer to write this line like this? So actually the greeting should be equal hello. Doesn't this reach much nicer? We're already going now into like DSL, which is something that is really nice with Kotlin. Or let's think about another example. Wouldn't it be nice to say, list should contain John? This reads much nicer. And the thing here is, there was no magic included. It's actually super simple what the guy did here. Because let's look at should contain. All he did was adding this infix to the declaration. And this tells the compiler that actually when you call list.should contain, you can also call it in that way. So we still call list.should contain John. I know there's something similar in Groovy, and when you look at your Gradle scripts, there's a kind of syntax you use very often. So have a look at this, and what's more important is it's actually really simple doing this. I'll show you again. At this, you can now think about building your own assertions based on your context, right? Build something that makes sense for your business context that no library can give you. There's another thing I want to show you. It's called spec. Maybe one of you knows Spock. Spock is something that a lot of people in the JUnit world, no, it's actually not JUnit world anymore, in the Java testing world use, where you write your tests in Groovy, and in a much nicer way than you would do it in JUnit. Spec is going in this direction, using Kotlin. But when you show this to people, then very often say, this looks like Jasmine. So if you're coming from a JavaScript world, you might have seen this. So let's look at what spec actually is. So your class would extend spec. This is how you extend a class. And then you have those blocks. Describe, on, it, which is basically the 3 steps of our test, given, when, then, arrange, act, assert. So we say, describe a calculator, and then you define a calculator. And when I add something, so on addition, so let's do the sum, then it should return the sum. So assert. And we group them. And what is the idea behind this? The idea is that when you then see the test results, it will give you those strings. Similar to what I showed you earlier, right, with calling your method names in a more human readable way. Because there is no method here anymore. It's all done by those definitions. And what it gives you here is you can add, for example, another case. So with the same describe, so the same calculator, I want to do a subtraction test. So you can, so when you look at, let's say like this, you look at this, in JUnit this would be much shorter, right? You have like 3 lines basically. But when you think about something like this, the reusing part of it, how would you express this? Because that's one of the problems with JUnit. And basically you just have a class and the tests, and there's no third level there they can use. And then there are some ways to build this in Java, but it's always ugly. So this is a nice way. And if you don't like this describe syntax, yeah, first, so you can then at the next describe here do another test. So if you don't like the describe, actually you can use get context or given, and then use the on and it. So they're all doing the same thing, depending on, because some people liked you have given, when, then or something. And those calls are really simple, you can even write your own. So what is the whole point here? I think that tests are a great way to learn Kotlin. And if you going to your boss, as we said earlier, say, I want to use Kotlin, the first thing he will say to you is, probably the first thing, yes, but everybody on the team needs to learn Kotlin now. We can't do this, we are 3, 5, 12 people. Put it in your tests. And then you can come for 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks later and say, you know, everyone on the team knows Kotlin. Can we use Kotlin now? So the first argument is taken away, because everybody slowly wraps up with Kotlin. The thing is, definitely start that road, but think about what is your next step. So how do you continue? Because there's one problem that I realized. So for my situation, for example, in the last company I used Kotlin. At the current company, we're doing this testing approach, and the next step for us would be to convince the stakeholders. But when you only use Kotlin in tests, you wrap up really quickly, but then you reach a level that it's hard to continue, because you're not using all the nice features of Kotlin. So use like the tutorials that are out there, really cool ones, where you basically, you give it unit tests, like in the browser, and make it pass. Describes you one of the Kotlin features. It's really nice about setting up everything to learn a bit more Kotlin. Do hackathons and say, we use Kotlin today. Do coding cutters. If you don't know coding cutter, it's similar to hackathons, but it's meant more like a repetitive task. You're getting a task that's normally very simple, and then you do it. In pair programming and pure TDD, test-driven development. And then you do it again, maybe the next day or the next hour, with maybe a different partner or some different restrictions. So coding cutter are a really nice way of sharing knowledge between teams. And it's a good way to learn more about Kotlin. To really have this confidence in yourself that you're ready for Kotlin in production, if you need this. And then build an experiment, because your stakeholders will still say, you know, we're not sure yet. Then say, okay, you know, we will build this thing as an A/B test. So you can shut it off at the next problem. I mean, there won't be any, because it's bytecode what you compile, right? There's no difference in the Java and the Kotlin code that you would ship. You could write the same thing in Java, the same bytecode. But it's important to get this experiment as like a backup plan for your stakeholders, and then prove them that it's working. If you did the first thing, the next one is easy. You can just continue. And if you now go, and next time in your IntelliJ do this, convert this file to Kotlin, you've done the first step. And now we can open for questions. And thanks. Any questions?
Hi. Thanks for this interesting information to think of. And the first question that I have, does it have any issues with Roboelectric?
So I'm not the biggest fan of Roboelectric, but as Roboelectric is based on JUnit, you won't have any issues. So I'm not aware of any. So we have some Roboelectric tests still left, and it should work. The only thing that I'm aware of is that lint compile tells you that those method names with like the spaces and the apostrophes, that they don't work on an Android. And I'm not sure with Roboelectric here, but I think it shouldn't be an issue because everything runs on a JVM.
And what do you use to avoid Roboelectric?
Basically wrap everything. So the thing is, Roboelectric you needed in the beginning when you wanted to write JUnit tests on a JVM. It wasn't possible a few years ago. But then, when basically they started moving to Gradle, what they did is they generate, they call it mockable jar. So they generate empty classes of all the classes. So they remove all the final. If you use JUnit for Roboelectric, there's not a single Android class that is final or has a final method. You can mock all of them. Although you go to Java doc and you see actually the code is final. The only reason that you still need Roboelectric is for the support libraries. So if you support Fragment instead of Fragment, you have a problem because there's actual code running. And then you need Roboelectric to wrap up the whole lifecycle. But we basically wrap everything. I mock activities, I mock fragments, and I call them even. And I call fragment on create, because there's no code running anymore if you don't use an app compat activity. So I don't even need Roboelectric there anymore. But I give a whole presentation. I can send you the link if you're interested with a lot of tips how to get rid of Roboelectric.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for Kotlin at this conference. I have some specific question about the interoperability between Java and Kotlin. Sometimes it looks ugly, and can you some examples with this and what we do with them?
So yeah, there's one problem. I said like you can call Java from Kotlin, Kotlin from Java. There are few concepts of Java that Kotlin doesn't have, like static. And it's not a problem calling it one way from calling a static method from Kotlin. It's not a problem. But sometimes if you want to call from Java, you have to tell the JVM this is actually a static way in a Java way of, because Kotlin is a different construct, how to build code statics. And then you need a @JVM static, for example. And there's another one, @JVM field, for example. So sometimes you have to use annotation that are a bit ugly. I hardly have them. So I have them for static. For example, when I create an intent, normally I used to have a static method in the activity so that no one else knows about the keys of that of those bundled arguments. And this was a static method, like a factory method that creates me this intent. Now in Kotlin, I build a companion object, and there you might have need @JVM static. So that is one part of the code where you have this ugly annotation. I would see it. So sometimes this is a problem. But see it as temporary, because it's just one way. And the less Java code you have, at some point you can remove all of them, because the goal for you is to have this parallel world for a time. But all the new code should be Kotlin, so it should be more and more Kotlin code, and at some point Java will go away, hopefully. So, yeah.
Thanks for the presentation. I have a boring life as a Java Android developer, and my only pleasure is actually to write tests in Groove using Spock framework you mentioned. My question is, does the spec framework from JetBrains support similar features, just like given content blocks and whatnot, or is it just a simpler version of Spock framework?
So I haven't worked much with Spock. I only need it once. From what I've seen, I think Spock has a few more features. I think spec is much more simple. It gives you like the blocks, you can define your own. But I think earlier with René from Gradle, he's mentioned that they use Spock, for example, a lot of like parameterized test, and I checked how they would do it in Gradle and Kotlin. They would use like the Kotlin language features, just like do a for each in the block, and then you have a block that works, so it looks nicer. But it's something where they say this goes to the language and not to the framework. But from what I see, Spock seems to be much more powerful than spec.